Good morning, YouTube. It is stupid early. Or as we say in the Army, it is dark 30. Because, let's get back to work and let's make sure that we get more done before 8 a.m. than most people do their entire day. That used to be the whole thing. So, anywho, thinking about a video and looking at some of the comments and reading some of the blogs and things like that. People talking about Helene, the aftermath, bugging out, bugging in. And one of the things that I wanted to really talk about and hit on real fast was how do you pay for goods and services? So if you do it right, you shouldn't have to go out anywhere for anything during the middle of an emergency, right? So the goal is to try and make sure that the worst part of the storm, the uprising, the whatever you got going on, whether it's riots in the streets, whether it's unrest, whether it's fire, whatever it is that you're not caught out and about in the situation, because that dramatically decreases your ability to make sure that you're safe, your family's safe, that kind of thing. So that's a big part of it. So you don't want to get caught out, and having gone through Helene and its aftermath, you wouldn't want to do it immediately anyway afterwards, because guess what? There ain't a whole lot going on. Especially if you talk about the damage caused by a massive storm, which is kind of an SHTF situation anyway, right? Life as you know it has just been upturned. There is no real civil authority around. There aren't the ability to use modern conveniences. There is not the ability to have utilities that you used to have. You couldn't use water, the power's out, the internet's out, all that stuff is gone. So if all that stuff is gone, why would you want to be out in that anyway? It just increases your risk. But let's say you're like most people and you're like, well, crap, I gotta go name your thing. It doesn't matter if it's Twinkies, or if it doesn't matter if it's whatever it is that you deemed imperative for your survival. You've decided, I need to go get it. Cool. How are you paying for stuff? Let that sink in for a minute. How are you paying for stuff? So in the aftermath of Helene, there was zero power for large swaths of the country. And I say the country because I'm in multiple states, and you're talking several hours outside of my immediate area. So if there's no ability to use electricity, most places weren't able to use credit cards or debit cards or anything that was electronic, your Apple Pay, your you name whatever. Cool. So you can't use the most likely form of payment. What's the next one? Cash. How many people have emergency money on hand? You should. If you don't, you should. I always keep emergency cash on me in any vehicle I'm in, or while I'm traveling somewhere. I have cash. However, you can't go to the ATM and go pick it up because, as we just mentioned, there's no electricity. There's no way for the bank or the ATM to dial out over the internet to go back to your bank to confirm your funds are there, to pull it from it, or pull from those funds and transfer them over. It just doesn't happen. All right, so let's say you don't have cash. Now what? Well, for a lot of folks, you're SOL. So out of luck. I'm trying to watch my language. But as we go forward, or as you look at it, you don't have cash, you don't have debit card. The next question I always see a lot is people, especially in the prepper community, is like, well, I'm going to get silver or gold. Cool. I'm a big fan of precious metals. I use them more as a hedge against inflation, because I don't think we're going to have an immediate collapse just like tomorrow. I just don't see that. Maybe I'm wrong. But silver or gold have been historically used as a medium of transfer of wealth for thousands of years. Awesome. I can tell you from experience, and having dealt with Helene, most people didn't have silver or gold. And maybe it's because the impact was not significant enough to where people could not go drive to go get resources. So, for example, if you were able to get out and you were able to get a couple hours drive away, you were able to restore resources, which included cash, being able to go to get goods and services. But I can tell you that I would not have given my solar generator or anything I may have had for a neighbor, I would not have sold it or transferred it for silver or gold. Why? Because in the meantime, that particular situation, it's worthless. To me, having the ability to produce electricity from the sun, or being able to produce electricity to run my generator or from a generator, was worth much, much more than a couple of silver eagles. Just was. So maybe in a post shit hit the fan scenario, where it is more significantly degraded for a significant amount of time, and it is kind of everything around you has gone down, and then it goes back up. Like, everybody goes down, it goes to a new base level of normal, and then you start having people who are trading afterwards, and you're trying to set out a common set of standards. So, like, okay, it's really hard to transfer if I've got goats and chickens and you want, and you have let's say a rifle that I want. Well, is that worth 3 chickens and 2 goats? Like, that's hard, right? Because what happens, is it a big chicken, a small chicken? Is it a miniature goat? Is it a full-size goat? Are they hens? Are they roosters? So on and so forth. You see what I mean? It makes a standard of exchange so much easier to say, okay, well, this rifle is worth 10 pre-1964 quarters, which are 90% silver. And then my chicken I value at 3 of those quarters. Okay, so I need to have 3.5 chickens or 4 chickens in order to make the transaction more feasible. So what did I see that was similar, but not necessarily using those? People inherently needed things of value that were good at the time. What was worth having on hand? Food was a huge one, believe it or not. Fresh food specifically. I have some neighbors that were venturing out and about because they were kind of short on things, and they are very much the type that like their modern conveniences. So they wanted ice. And trust me when I tell you, ice is a huge deal, especially in the South. It was still very warm at the time. Now I'm wearing a hoodie, 3 weeks later, go figure. But at the time, it was very, very warm. So having ice on hand was a luxury, because it keeps your stuff cold. And then if you can put cold ice cubes in your drink when it's 85 degrees and you've been working outside, recovering stuff all day, let me tell you, son, that was, you would be surprised how luxurious that sounds. Like, ice sounded fantastic, but we didn't want to go out and go venture for it. We had ice cubes being put into our freezer that we were powering. So we had some ice, but we were also using it to keep the other food colder in there, so that wasn't going to pull as much energy for the freezer kicking back on and off. So they decided to go out and go get ice. Fine, cool, got it. They went out and grabbed ice. While we're talking, I realized that they did not have fresh food. They were eating out of cans, they were eating pre-made stuff, which gets old after a while. And they made a comment about, hey, is there anything? They just asked, like, hey, is there anything you need? And I said, well, we're actually pretty good. I appreciate the ask. And then she mentioned ice. I said, well, if you have extra ice, would love some, because that's a luxury, right? But I wasn't going to go out and venture out to go get it. So they said, oh yeah, no problem. We got extra. Okay, cool. I said, well, what do you want for it? They said, oh, no, we're good. I said, no, come on now. We have to find some kind of means of exchange. Because want to make sure it's fair. And they said, well, do you have any fresh food? And I said, well, yeah, we have a pretty good sized garden. It surprisingly survived through a lot of that stuff. I had a huge pumpkin that survived too. No clue how. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I said, well, yeah, how about some fresh eggs? Because we have chickens. They're like, wow, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. We haven't had any eggs, but we don't have any way to cook them. I said, to tell you what, I will get you some eggs, and I will even throw them on the stove, and I will boil them for you. So hard-boiled eggs. So that way you have some fresh protein on hand. And they said, oh, that'd be fantastic. I said, we'll grab you a couple bags of ice. And I said, well, what do you think is fair? And they said, well, just 6 eggs. Y'all, they're a family of 6. That's like 1 egg per person. That's not a ton. And seeing as my little fur beasts or feathered beasts do somewhere between 4 and 6 eggs a day, depending on their cycles, I was like, look, okay, we'll get you squared away. No problem. Well, I went over and I cooked up a baker's dozen of eggs because that's just what you do, right? You take care of people. And we had extra on hand. We were able to provide. So that one item, we ended up getting, I think they got us like 2.5, 3 bags of ice. And that 2.5, 3 bags of ice ended up getting us, they got 3 chicken eggs. Now, that was a straight up barter. And it was great. We were happy because ice, luxury. They were happy because fresh food, luxury. Oh, man, you're living high on the hog whenever you think ice isn't a luxury. That was one example. We used those eggs from those chickens to feed, I think we counted 4 different families that we were able to help provide for. Let me count 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 4 different families, and I want to say 15-ish people, if we count all together, off of 4 chickens. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody was eating till they were full, but having the ability to do that was awesome. So food was a barter item. Generators were a barter item. Hey, if you for example, I had to use a generator from one of my neighbors to kind of get everything back charged up for the solar panels as well, or for the solar battery, plus charge the freezer to make it hard freeze, because the solar battery I had at the time was just struggling, because we got caught in the rear for getting that on there. And I was able to barter, hey, you have a small generator you're not using right now, or one of my neighbors he's bought 3 generators in the last couple of days. He bought a small one, a medium-sized one, and now he's got a huge one that he's planning on hooking up to his house so he never runs out of power again. Cool, that's your prerogative. You got the money to spend for it, go. I was like, can I borrow your generator for 12 hours? Just overnight, so that way I can charge everything up so it's good to go. He's like, yeah, no problem. So I had gas on hand, used my own gas. Then he's like, I have a tree in my backyard, but I don't have a chainsaw. Bro, I got you covered. He used the 4-for-1 gas, or the 4-for-1 or 2-for-1. Anyway, oil gas combo for the chainsaw. Used my chainsaw to help cut down some of the trees that he had that had hit his deck. And I used his generator in order to get what I needed done, and both of us benefited. There was no exchange of money. None of us, if we ever went out for a run to go to Walmart, or we went out to a run for a gas run, or we went out for name your thing, the neighborhood was always about, how can I help you? And then if they went out, how can you help us? Like, everybody was looking out for each other. Now, it was a roughly 8-day power down kind of scenario for us, which is a long time if you think about it, for not having any type of utilities. But never once it was cash exchange, because none of us had cash. None of us had Zelle. None of us had Venmo. None of us had any way to pay the other anything, including like hard currency. Like I had cash on hand, but that wasn't valuable because it didn't matter. It wasn't a necessity. You know, fuel canisters, butane stoves, propane accessories. I'm pretty sure if things had gotten froggy, like if there was actual civil unrest, looters, that kind of stuff, all of a sudden, he who hath the guns and the ammo maketh the rules. There's a lot of folks in my neighborhood I found out who have zero way of protecting themselves. Not good. Which means if I was a person who was not exactly good, if I was intent on evil or, taking over, it would be a relatively easy thing to do because if I have the guns, I make the rules. But those started to become very popular. In fact, the local military post, once it finally opened up, they were out for a good week. 10 days, 12 days. Even when their power came back up, the commanding general of that post actually forbade the sale of any firearms or ammo, because most of them have a post exchange or a base exchange where they have guns and ammo that service members can purchase. Forbade any purchase of those because it was an emergency situation and Don't agree with it, but there were multiple times. I'm a friend with the guy at the gun counter, go figure, and he was saying that he was turning away probably 15 to 20 people per hour looking to buy something to protect themselves with. So I saw that more rapidly becoming a medium of exchange than, say, a piece of silver or gold, because like most people have no idea what the value of silver or gold is. I mean, right now, I think last I saw, gold was up at like $26.5 and silver was somewhere around $30 an ounce. Nobody knows what does that translate to? What can I buy with that? Nobody has that mentality yet because it wasn't bad enough. So I'm not discouraging it, but I'm not encouraging it either, because as a medium of exchange, it just was not used in this particular emergency scenario. It could be used elsewhere once things get back to, if things are down long enough and have to get back to normal. So I'm not discouraging people from preparing and having some of that on hand, but I just didn't see it. It wasn't used. What I did see was people helping people and people bartering with goods and stuff that they had. One of the families we helped out with, they had no way to cook food that was going bad. So they came over to our house. In exchange for cooking the food that was going bad, they were letting us eat some of the food that we cooked. Like, I mean, just think about that for a second. Hey, I'm losing money. I know I'm going to be out of food. This is going to go bad. In order to make sure that my kids can eat, I'm going to give somebody else extra food in order to take care of them. So, just food for thought. I will talk to y'all later. Stay safe out here.